this is one of those things where it's a good idea, but it could be misregulated and really cause the market to tailspin.
Construction is what will bring down the price of housing, and rent control will not.
It's never a good idea to single out any individual group or point the finger at them. Another thing that probably came from a good place, but the wording and the way it was set up was not a good idea for Nevada.
Welcome back to Nevada Realtors Today, your place for timely updates on the news and trends that matter to realtors in the Silver State. Now let's join your Nevada Realtors President, Brandon Roberts, and Nevada Realtors CEO, Tiffany Banks, for today's episode of Nevada Realtors Today.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Nevada Realtors Today, and we had continuing this takeover, and good gosh, who is this handsome guy on the screen? I haven't seen him in weeks.
It feels like weeks, doesn't it? But there's a lot of stuff going on in the state capitol.
Yeah, I actually filed unemployment paperwork for you. I thought you were gone. I had no idea, but I have to quickly get that back so I don't have to pay the extra fees.
No, not me. I'm always here, ready, willing, and able.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Bishop, your vice chair of the Nevada Realtors Legislative Committee. And those of you who do know me, I'm Azim Jessa, and we are here I know we talked about deadline day in our last podcast, but now we've actually seen the fallout of what's happened, and 30 bills that we were monitoring have fallen off or died essentially. But nothing's really dead till the end of legislature. But as for now, they are not moving on to the next house, and we've got a few of them we're going to talk about here with you. So, Chris, I know you wanted to touch on SB 242. That was the bill that would have made sure that any home that's listed would be offered to owner occupants initially for 30 days.
Yeah, we've seen this come up multiple sessions, and we do understand that there's a corporate ownership problem here in Southern Nevada. But I just want to remind everybody, back during the Great Recession, people weren't too upset when investors went into communities and saved associations by paying their association fees when many of the properties were literally being foreclosed on and people couldn't make those payments. And we're still seeing repercussions from that happening way back then. But every session, someone brings forward a bill that says, we want to make it easier for first-time home buyers, for owner occupants to get into properties. And we've now seen, inventory levels escalate. We're up into, I think, 8,000 homes in Southern Nevada on the MLS. And so understandably, we want to do everything we can for those living here and enjoying our community, but we also don't want to stagnate the marketplace. And this is one of those things where it's a good idea, but it could be misregulated and really cause the market to tailspin. And so can you imagine right now that you're trying to sell your property because of whatever instance, and you have to wait 30 days, even though you have a cash investor offer that you want to take, you're forced to wait 30 days. So at the heart of private property rights and my ability to do what I would like with my property, the bill, the way it was written, it's probably a good thing it went away, but definitely worth the conversation.
Absolutely, right? We'd love to see incentives for people to sell to owner occupants, but punishing people by forcing them to list their homes for 30 days. Another example in that realm is if you have a home that's maybe just in disrepair, right? Maybe there's a probate type sale or something like that. And, we have these flippers, or as some of them call themselves, community redevelopers. But they'll come in, right? They'll buy a flip home. They'll buy a home at the foreclosure auction, and that 99% of those homes end up back in a Nevada homeowner's hands, right? Like the flipper will clean up that home and then they'll list it for market value. And that comes back to our homeowners, right? This would make that type of endeavor even impossible, right? And put a lot of people out of business. And that's a necessary part of the market right now. So
sometimes you can overregulate something to the point where the unintended consequences are what we'd be dealing with. And I think that the idea is we definitely want to do things because affordability matters for primary residences, and usually it's going through that process. But we definitely don't want to stagnate the marketplace.
And this bill sponsor we've committed to working with in the interim, so that's going to be Chris's job next session. Before next session, to meet with Senator Flores and talk through these things. He's actually been a very good supporter of our issues this session. And so, we both want the same thing. We want Nevada homeowners to own homes. It's just how we get there. We got to get there on the same road. So SB 151 was a bill that did not make it through, and that was mobile home rent control, right? So essentially allowing rent control on mobile homes. So I don't think we have to talk about this one too much. We are against rent control. It is a flawed policy. It does nothing to bring down the cost of housing, nor does it do anything to increase the supply, which is the biggest problem, we believe, right? We are 90-ish thousand homes short in Southern Nevada and about 10, 15,000 homes short in Northern Nevada. And construction is what will bring down the price of housing, and rent control will not. So simple as that. I don't know if I can say any more about it. Go to truthaboutrentcontrol.com and share that on your socials, guys. You'll learn all about why we believe rent control is a bad policy and why it's been proven to be a bad policy. It's not even just a belief, it's a fact.
Yeah, I've seen your other videos. You could definitely expand on it, but you did good on that.
All right. There was SB 436, Chris. That was creating a registry for rental properties.
Yeah, this is another great idea down the wrong path. We've seen these registry ideas where they can actually identify investment properties and say, oh, this is a list that's here. There are some unintended issues that come from that. It could be the fact that we're signaling out people and they could be targeted for that reason. But I think the whole point is that they're trying to do something from a safety factor a couple sessions ago where they said, hey, we want to know about vacant properties. And so a lot of municipalities try to enact legislation and regulation to go in and do that, and it failed miserably. And so I think the whole point around this is it's never a good idea to single out any individual group or point the finger at them and say this is what it is. So another thing that probably came from a good place, but the wording and the way it was set up was not a good idea for Nevada.
Right. And then our last one that we're going to chat on today is SB 433. And this is Chris's favorite bill. This was an HOA bill talking about how you can speak to people on social media.
Yeah.
But hidden in there was a couple of sentences that also made this a quasi construction defect bill. And so we were just kind of chuckling a little bit. We're like, oh my gosh, now we're going to start. Listen, nobody likes the discourse that happens on social media, right? It is a scourge, if that's the right word. It is generally not a healthy place to be, to spend a lot of time. And this bill was going to regulate that.
This was the Love Thy Neighbor bill. And the interesting thing about it, the way it was written is, if I had to dispute with my neighbor and I took to social media to air out my grievance, which makes some of the best social media posts I've seen lately, that could be illegal. And I think that goes to a couple of items, it may be the freedom of speech and the things I could say. But at the end of the day, it just doesn't make sense that, if you wanted to get rid of me as your neighbor, all you have to do is accuse me of saying something and baiting me into that. And I mean, I couldn't imagine the headache and the disputes we would see as a property manager or just the poor people that are trying to figure out who's right, who's wrong. But what you put on Facebook matters. So be careful.
Oh, yeah. And like I said, there's a couple sentences in there that made it a bit of a construction defect type of bill. And, the bill died. It didn't make it through. So no harm, no foul, I guess, for now. But again, construction defect is one of the issues that does make housing more expensive, right? If you build a home and you get sued for, again, if the home's unsafe, we certainly want to make sure that people live in safe homes. But, there's an argument that a lot of these lawsuits are maybe a little more frivolous than necessary. So I'm not an attorney. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a contractor. I can't tell you if the houses are good or bad. But it sure seems like there's a lot more of those lawsuits for small dollars where the attorneys make a lot of money and the homeowner gets $14 and has to make a disclosure when they sell their home.
Yeah, it's something we've seen on the uptick, as market cycles change and everything else. And we've had so much new construction in Nevada because of all the growth and people that are moving here. And so I think that it's interesting how they just popped up overnight with all of these different litigations that have happened. But yeah, many bills that we reviewed this session that address that or try to address that one way or another. So it's interesting to see how it all worked out.
Yeah, you're right. As the development increased, so did, every industry will move to where the money is, right?
Yeah.
And so, well, that's about all we have for you right now. It's going to be a quiet couple of weeks as people work through reading the bills. The other house now is reading, the Senate's reading the Assembly bills, the Assembly's reading the Senate bills, looking to make amendments and whatnot. And then we'll get into some hearings soon. So we're going to enjoy the slight bit of quietness, but knowing that the storm is coming again. And we'll be back with you in a couple of weeks. Hopefully with Chris.
I'm going to take some time off.
All right, guys, take care. Enjoy your day.